Smoke rises like a black curtain over the burning deserts of Kuwait, 1991. The flames roar endlessly, swallowing the horizon as oil wells, set ablaze by retreating Iraqi forces, turn the sky into an apocalyptic canvas. To the human eye, it looked as if the world itself was ending, sunlight blocked, sand coated in soot, air choked with poison. And yet, amidst this fiery inferno, a camera shutter clicked, freezing not just destruction but a hidden fragment of history that few were ever meant to see. Photos like these are more than images. They are time machines. They transport us into forgotten moments, painful reunions, silent victories, and haunting symbols of survival. From children forced to wear Mickey Mouse gas masks in World War II, to mothers embracing sons lost and found in the chaos of war, these photographs carry emotions that words often fail to capture. But behind each photo lies something deeper, a story untold, a secret buried within the frame. Tonight, we open that hidden album and uncover the forgotten whispers of history that these pictures still hold. History is often written in textbooks, names, dates, victories, defeats. It is tidy, controlled, edited into neat paragraphs. But photographs refuse to be tidy. They capture the raw truth, the unfiltered moments that the pages of history sometimes wish to forget. A single image can carry the weight of 1,000 words, whispering to us across decades with voices that no classroom lecture could ever reproduce. Think about the mother who embraced her son after he escaped a prisoner of war camp in Korea, 1953. The photograph does not need an explanation. You can feel her trembling relief, his exhaustion, the invisible years of longing packed into a single embrace. Or the strange, almost surreal vision of American children wearing Mickey Mouse gas masks in 1942, a dark reminder of how war seeped even into the innocence of childhood. These are not just pictures, they are confessions of an era. Yet many of these images were never meant for public eyes. They were fragments, often tucked away in archives, private albums, or forgotten negatives. Some were censored because they revealed too much, others ignored because they did not fit the grand narrative of nations. But now, they resurface not to glorify, but to remind. Every photo is both a window and a mirror, a window into another time, showing us the dust storms of Oklahoma, the grandeur of the Hindenburg floating past the Empire State Building, the desperate crowds outside collapsing banks during the Great Depression, but also a mirror reflecting our present fears, our resilience, and the way humanity endures even in its darkest hours. Tonight, we will walk through this gallery of lost memories, each frame a frozen heartbeat, each shadow a secret. We will not just see history, we will feel it, question it, and, perhaps, never look at it the same way again. The Inferno in Kuwait, 1991. The desert should have been silent, an endless sea of sand shimmering under the Gulf Sunday. But in 1991, silence was replaced by a deafening roar. As Iraqi forces retreated during the Gulf War, they set fire to hundreds of Kuwaiti oil wells, creating one of the most apocalyptic sights humanity had ever witnessed. Black smoke smothered daylight. The horizon glowed with an eerie orange. Photographers who stood on that cursed land said it felt like breathing fire, the air thick with poison and despair. These images survive today as a reminder of how human conflict can scar the earth itself, leaving wounds that nature may take centuries to heal. A Mother's Embrace, Korea, 1953. Not all tragedies are marked by flames. Some are etched in tears. During the Korean War, countless families were torn apart, brothers on opposite sides, fathers vanishing into battlefields, children lost in chaos. One photograph captured the exact moment a mother embraced her son after he escaped a prisoner of war camp. Her arms, trembling, locked around him as though she could anchor him to life itself. His face worn, gaunt, but alive, spoke louder than any military speech. That reunion, frozen in black and white, is not just a story of survival but of love, outlasting war. The Dust Bowl Storm, Oklahoma, 1937. Nature itself can be crueler than any enemy. In the 1930 seconds, America's Great Plains were battered by storms, so fierce that day turned into night. Farmers watched helplessly as dust swallowed their homes, their crops, and their futures. A photograph from 1937 shows a storm rolling like a wall of death across Oklahoma, a monstrous cloud ready to devour everything in its path. Families abandoned the land they had tilled for generations, fleeing west in search of hope. Their faces, worn and weary, became the human portrait of a natural disaster that reshaped a nation. Innocence in a gas mask, 1942, but perhaps the most haunting of all are the images where innocence and war collide. During World War II, American children were issued gas masks in case of chemical attack. Some were designed to look like Mickey Mouse, a cruel attempt to soften terror with playfulness. The photographs are unsettling, wide-eyed children, smiling faintly, yet hidden behind grotesque masks. It is a surreal image of a world where even childhood was not safe, where cartoons could not erase the shadow of bombs and poison gas. These tiny faces behind rubber masks whisper to us even now, war steals more than lives. It steals the very essence of youth. The Hindenburg over New York, 1937, it drifted like a giant silver whale through the sky, a marvel of human engineering and ambition. The German airship Hindenburg floated near the Empire State Building in New York, and for a moment, it seemed as if the future of travel had arrived. Passengers peered down at the city below, believing they were witnessing a new golden age of flight. Yet within weeks, fire would consume the Hindenburg in one of history's most infamous disasters. This photograph, calm, majestic, almost serene, now feels like a cruel trick of fate. It is a reminder that even the grandest dreams can collapse in flames. Soldiers as the Statue of Liberty, 1918. In Iowa, 18,000 American soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, arranged in precise formation until their bodies shaped the outline of the Statue of Liberty. Captured in a single photograph during the final year of World War I, the image is breathtaking. From the ground, they were simply men standing in lines under the sunday, but from the sky, they became an immortal symbol of unity and sacrifice. These men were more than soldiers. They were flesh and blood turned into a monument, their formation whispering a promise of freedom even as the world bled. The rocket scooter, 1931. The 1930 seconds were an era caught between despair and imagination. Amid the shadows of the Great Depression, inventors still dreamed of speed, power, and tomorrow. The rocket scooter of 1931 looked like something from a pulp science fiction magazine, sleek, dangerous, almost comical. Photographs show wide-eyed crowds gathering to watch the machine roar down streets, its futuristic design embodying the hope that technology could outpace hardship. It never became a common sight, but it remains frozen in history as a testament to humanity's refusal to stop dreaming, even when reality was grim. The first electric cars, 1910. Long before our modern debates about climate and fuel, there was another photograph, an electric car in 1910, plugged into a primitive charging station. The image feels almost surreal. A century ago, before highways and gas stations dominated the world, innovators were already chasing the idea of clean, sustainable energy. Though these early attempts would fade, overtaken by gasoline engines, the photograph lingers as proof that history often hides roads not taken. It whispers of a future imagined too soon, a reminder that sometimes progress is not about invention, but timing. A family Halloween, 1940. The photograph seems simple at first glance. A family dressed in homemade costumes, posing together on a crisp October night. But linger a little longer, and the picture speaks volumes. It was 1940. War raged overseas. The world trembled on the brink. Yet here in America, children still laughed under masks of paper and cloth. Their smiles remind us that even in the shadow of uncertainty, people clung to tradition, to joy, to the small rituals that made them feel human. It is a portrait of resilience wrapped in festive disguise. Shoe shiners of New York, 1890 seconds. On the busy streets of New York, little boys crouched at the feet of strangers, brushes in hand, polishing shoes until they gleamed. A photograph from the 1890 seconds shows their young faces, weary yet determined. They were children, but already breadwinners, surviving in a city that never slowed. Their hands carried the weight of poverty, their gazes carried the hope of something better. This image is more than a glimpse of the past. It is a reminder of how entire generations were raised in struggle, yet managed to carve their place in history. Dorm life, 1910. Inside a quiet dormitory at the University of Illinois, two students sit among bare walls, simple furniture, and the stillness of study. The photograph feels almost too ordinary, yet it is precisely this ordinariness that makes it powerful. Before wars drafted them, before history scattered them, they were just young men dreaming of futures, their faces unlined by time. Every dorm room, every quiet evening, carried within it a world of possibilities, possibilities that history would later reshape. A French woman's kiss, 1944. 2 days after Strasbourg was liberated from Nazi occupation, a French woman leaned forward and kissed an American soldier. The photograph captures it in mid-motion, her joy, his surprise, the crowds cheering around them. In that instant, war was not politics or strategy. It was flesh, breath, and the wild relief of freedom returned. One kiss spoke louder than treaties. It was a gesture carved not just on lips but on the heart of a nation finally unshackled. Al Capone, at rest, 1929. We know him as the untouchable gangster, the king of Chicago's underworld. But one photograph from 1929 tells a different story. Al Capone, dressed in a simple swimsuit, stands on Palm Island, far from the smoke-filled bars and blood-stained streets. He looks almost ordinary, relaxed, smiling faintly, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses, and yet the shadow of violence clings to him like a second skin. This picture is unsettling not because of what it shows, but because of what it hides. The paradox of a man who could order death with a nod, yet stand before the camera as though he were just another vacationer enjoying the Sunday. Pablo Picasso in Paris, 1944. The war had not yet ended when the photograph was taken. Paris was still raw with scars, but inside a modest studio, Pablo Picasso posed for the camera. The painter of fractured faces and twisted forms stood calm, his gaze sharp, almost defiant. By 1944, he was already a titan of modern art, reshaping the way the world saw itself. But in this image, surrounded by the clutter of his genius, he is both artist and survivor, someone who turned chaos into creation, even as the city around him struggled to breathe again. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. He gave the world its most brilliant detective, but photographs of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle reveal a man both thoughtful and haunted. His stories made Holmes immortal, yet Doyle himself wrestled with mysteries far stranger than fiction, spiritualism, seances, a desperate search for meaning beyond the rational world. In his portrait, he stares past the lens, as if listening to something only he can hear. It is the look of a man who uncovered every clue, solved every puzzle, yet still longed for answers just out of reach. The last survivor of Waterloo, 1,890 seconds, Louis Victor Bayo, at 103 years old, posed for a photograph that few could believe. He was the last living veteran of the Battle of Waterloo, the clash that reshaped Europe in 1815. His frail body leaned on a cane, but his eyes still burned with the memory of cannons and cavalry. To see him was to see living history, a man who carried the echoes of Napoleon's fall in his own trembling hands. When we look at his face, we are not just seeing a soldier, we are seeing the final human link to one of history's great turning points, the Mickey Mouse gas mask, when innocence wore fear. At first glance, it almost looks playful. Children smiling faintly behind oversized gas masks, shaped like Mickey Mouse. But the deeper you look, the more unsettling the image becomes. It was 1942, and the world stood on edge, fearing chemical warfare that might spread even to American soil. To prepare, authorities distributed these masks to children. The idea was grotesquely simple. If the masks resembled a beloved cartoon, perhaps children would wear them without fear. Yet the effect was the opposite. Photographs show a surreal collision between innocence and terror, the wide eyes of children peering through rubber goggles, their tiny voices muffled by the machinery of survival. What should have been laughter became silence. In that moment, Mickey Mouse was no longer a symbol of joy, but a grim reminder that even childhood could be weaponized by war. 18,000 soldiers as the Statue of Liberty, flesh and blood monument. The year was 1918, and the world was desperate for symbols of hope. In Iowa, 18,000 soldiers gathered on a training field, their bodies arranged with mathematical precision until they formed the outline of the Statue of Liberty. From the ground, they were simply men standing shoulder to shoulder, sweat dripping under the Sunday. But from above, they became something astonishing, a monument of flesh and blood, Photographs of this living statue circulated as a message to the nation. Freedom was not just an idea carved in stone, it was alive in the men willing to fight and die for it. Yet there is an unspoken truth in this image. Many of those men, captured as part of liberty's silhouette, would never return home. Their bodies became both symbol and sacrifice, their final resting place not in marble, but in memory. Together, these two photographs, one of innocence stolen, the other of sacrifice, immortalized, reveal a hidden side of history. They remind us that behind every picture lies a truth too heavy for the surface, a story that demands to be felt, not just seen. We have wandered through deserts set ablaze, streets swallowed by dust, and quiet dorm rooms where dreams once bloomed. We have seen children forced to trade innocence for gas masks, mothers clinging to sons returned from war, and soldiers shaping their own bodies into symbols of freedom. Each photograph, frozen in time, whispered more than facts. It carried human breath, sorrow, hope, and resilience. These images were never meant to be mere records. They are warnings and reminders, fragments of humanity preserved in silver and shadow. They remind us that history is not distant. It is alive in the tears of a mother, the laughter of children, the silence of men who never returned. As we close this hidden album of the past, one question remains. Which photograph spoke to you the loudest? Which frame will linger in your mind long after the screen fades to black? Share your thoughts below, because history is not just what we are told, it is what we choose to remember.